Hey, and welcome to another book review with Johnny Boy. Let's dig into it. So today I'm talking about Jerome, Kern, a biography by Michael Freedland, published in 1981. Copyright was 78. I guess it took a little time to get out there. So, first of all, who is Jerome Kern? Jerome Kern is one of the great American songwriters, composers. I have to say up front that when I read biographies from people who wrote pre-internet and especially kind of like the old days when computers were like, I don't know, maybe you could have a computer back then and type your book on it. I'm sure you could in the 70s, but it didn't really seem like that here. Old biographies, a much different approach than new ones, I would say. It's just my general feeling. But they're equally as fascinating if you're into the topic. They can be. And this author, Michael Freedland, was pretty good. I usually I read 3 books at a time. With this, I decided I'm just going to read it because it's got this nice, like, thin, a little bit thick, but approachable, under 200 pages. 174, the clock's in at, plus the index. So I read it in one shot, not one day, or maybe 2 weeks or less. So after researching or reading the book about Tin Pan Alley, I found so many composers and songwriters and performers from that time that I want to know more about. Jerome Kern was one of them. When I was younger, I played classical guitar and I learned some songs, and some of the songs that I just naturally was able to play and that I liked were songs by Kern, such as can't find the ones that I played, but All the Things You Are, A Fine Romance. Those particular, I remember playing it the last time I saw Paris. The other ones that I always heard the name of, I never quite knew the tune, but that he's famous for are, I'll just put his picture here. That's Mr. Kern right there. Yeah, so other songs that he's famous for are They Didn't Believe Me, 1914. Look for the Silver Lining, 1920. Old Man River, Can't Help Loving That Man, Make Believe, You Are Love, and Bill, all from Showboat, 1927. The Song Is You, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, Yesterdays, and Let's Begin, all from Roberta, 1933. I Won't Dance, 1935, A Fine Romance, and the Academy Award winning The Way You Look Tonight, both from Swing Times, 1936. All the Things You Are, 1939, and I'm Old Fashioned, 1942. And then there was The Last Time I Saw Paris, and one of the last hits was Long Ago and Far Away, 1944. So he was, a lot of these composers are, foreigners, but I don't think he was, he grew up in Manhattan, and he had like 5 brothers and sisters, and he came from a little bit of money, I think. Yeah, he did. So he was a little bit pampered, a little bit, and that definitely, carried through his life. He had this kind of martinet quality about him. I think a few people called him the Kaiser or something like that. So, if you were going to be involved with him, it was a blessing because it was probably going to be a success, and it was cursed because it might be hell. So, of course, not every show was like that, but there's a certain period of time when he kind of had this clout in the industry, and he knew how to get his way by basically throwing a temper tantrum. And I think he was the younger brother or something, so that would make sense. You know, I don't know. I didn't say that. I'm just kind of drawing conclusions here. He's pretty much an American guy, a Jewish heritage, but not really. It wasn't until like he moved to Hollywood in the 30s that he even like had a Seder dinner or a Passover dinner, just for the heck of it, with one of his partners. So one of his famous writing partners was Oscar Hammerstein II, later to become Rodgers and Hammerstein, the guys who wrote Annie Get Your Gun in the 40s. Annie Get Your Gun was supposed to be with Kern, but oh no, sorry, yeah, Annie Get Your Gun is Rodgers and Fields, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure, but he was supposed to be the original composer, and then on the way to rehearsal for it, I think, or to meet some of the people involved with the project or something in New York, he just had this cerebral hemorrhage on 57 and Park Avenue. You have to have breakfast or lunch with one of his old-time collaborators, Guy Bolton, and it just collapsed. Ended up in City Hospital, which is a public hospital right under the 59th Street Bridge, and they couldn't even identify him. And then he had his ASCAP card, and somehow through that they managed to identify him, and he never woke up. That he was 60 years old. It was November 1945. Anyway, it was a kind of a sudden conclusion to this stormy life that I was a little bit surprised by it when I got to that point. I mean, I saw the book was coming to the end. I'm like, but yeah, I don't know. It seems fitting. You know, rock stars can die of drug overdoses or, you know, airplane crashes or whatever, in a blaze of glory or in a blaze of indulgence, whatever. But this guy, he was known for like his being strong-willed, being very temperamental. He had vast collections of stamps. At one point, his book collection was incredibly huge and valuable. Like he went to all lengths to acquire like very special, like first edition of Charles Dickens books and all sorts of special things that are hard to come by that, you know, collector would really, really want. And he amassed this huge collection because of all these huge Broadway hits that he had that were also playing in London, and the hit after hit of musical theater. And of course, then that would translate sometimes to sheet music and sometimes to recordings. So, and he just had this like golden touch for a while. So he had a lot of success materially, and he would spend it on these collections of books, I said later on, stamps, silverware. But the book collection got to a point where he just got tired of it. It was like consuming him, because he haggled for these things. He researched them, probably a lot of communications, like letters and stuff, to find the ones he was looking, traveling. So, and I'm sure he wasn't able to sit and read them because they're so, you know, precious, you don't want to touch them. So I thought comic books were valuable, right? I grew up, I'm a comic collector. My dad was a comic collector, much bigger than I was. We sold a bunch of them. I was like, yeah, comics is where it's at. But this guy, Jerome Kern, in 1929, 9 months or so before the crash of Wall Street, he did an auction. He's decided, okay, I'm done with books. They're consuming me. I'm going to sell my collection and, you know, donate some of it, invest some of it, the money, whatever. He ended up selling his collection of books at the time. Total number, I think, was something like $1.7 million in that day's money. Completely outrageous. Early Mark Twain, you know, editions, things like that. I mean, maybe Shakespeare. I don't know what he had in there, but things people wanted, and for some reason were willing to pay a stupid amount of money for. And I guess that was the Roaring '20s. The money was still rolling in. People were still in that kind of gambling, take a risk, make money mindset before the crash happened. So he definitely was smart to sell those books before that happened. I don't know if the smart's the word, but his intuition was spot on for that. He survived the depression pretty well because, you know, he was padded with a lot of different royalties and stuff like that. But of course it hit him hard because just musical theater just kind of slowed down, and that was his bread and butter. So in the 30s, people didn't have money to buy tickets to the theater in the early 30s, especially depression's hitting. But they could maybe afford 25 cents or 50 cents, whatever they were paying for movies. And so there was this big flock of, migration to Hollywood from the Tin Pan Alley and Broadway composers, because Hollywood, these guys had money, they were making money, and they needed good music, and they were willing to pay for it. And they were able to offer a different situation where they could like put you on as a staff writer, so you could just like be held for a salary. And then you get a project, and you get money for a project. It depends on the situation, but it was a different, kind of more stable environment in Hollywood for a good songwriter composer. Like there's more chance you're going to get regular gigs if you jump into that stream. The potential for a hit wasn't as big as a composer and stuff as it was for on Broadway maybe, but and certainly the excitement was a lot less. It seemed like a lot of these New Yorkers, they want to go back to New York after a while. They liked Hollywood initially, but it became pretty tame and shallow. Anyway, it's a very good book. I know I'm talking about the book in a very non-linear way, not so specifically. It's well written. I'm just telling you things I learned from the book. It's pretty chronological, but again, like those older style biographies, the chronology is a little bit more haphazard because you're not checking Wikipedia and stuff. You can only use the sources that you have and make sense out of it. So, yeah, so that's pretty much that. You know, I listen to Jerome Kern's music because of this. He's a very influential American composer that I knew almost nothing about. All the Things You Are became like a jazz standard of sorts. Fine Romance is a big one. Old Man River is a pretty legendary song. He's worth knowing about, especially if you're, you know, I'm an American composer, songwriter. I consider myself, even though I'm like sort of casual variety, I still have hundreds of music registered with ASCAP. He's one of the hundreds of songs. He's one of the founding members of ASCAP. So it's something I feel, you know, it's for me to learn about and learn from. Anyway, thanks Jerome Kern for the beautiful music, and thank you for watching. Till next time, ciao.